Anyone who grew up in the late 90s and early noughties in Britain will remember the Tweenies. Hi everyone, this is Ancient Ale here with my first commentary video. I'm very excited to get into it. Please stick around to see what kind of hijinks we're going to get up to on this channel. But I figured my first proper video should be about something iconic, and what is more iconic than a old children's TV show that has some quite questionable lore, so let's get into it. The British children's TV show, The Tweenies, aired on TV from September 1999 to July 2002, with a total of 390 episodes. It was widely popular, spawning home releases, video games, live shows, and even songs, one of which peaked at number 5 on the UK charts. Not everything is gonna be as good to look back on as something like The Tweenies, you know. Sometimes you've got shows where you rewatch them and you're like, actually this sucks. But I always thought that The Tweenies would hold up, and I actually went back and watched a few episodes in preparation for this video, and it's safe to say that the show holds up. It's still something that I would definitely stick on for my kids. I just think that the characters are really strong. The plot lines, obviously they're not that in-depth because it's a kid's show, but you know, I think that it holds up. I guess I should probably sum up the concept of the show for anybody who's for some reason watched this far and gone, I don't know what The Tweenies is. The Tweenies focused on 4 preschool-aged children in a nursery, alongside the staff and the dogs. Why there were dogs allowed in the nursery is beyond me, to be honest, because the size of them, they're absolutely gigantic. I know that they're, you know, somebody in a costume, but Jesus Christ, these like hulking behemoths were allowed to wander the walls of a nursery. Really does bother me, actually. Probably one of the only aspects of the show that doesn't hold up to this day. But anyway, so there was Bella, the oldest tweenie, who had some kind of superiority complex. I never really liked Bella when I watched the show because I thought she was an arrogant brat. But looking into it, even though she's the oldest tweenie, she's still only 5 years old, so it feels kind of mean to bully a child. But yeah, Bella, I've got beef with you, girl. I never liked you. Bella was best friends with Fizz, who was sweet and a little bit of an introvert. I remember always thinking she was the most normal one out of the group. You know, she kind of did have a bit of an air of the high and mightiness about her sometimes, you know, if the plot demanded it. But I think that she was just a fairly normal kid. I don't remember really having any beef with her. But my favourite had to be Milo. He was so energetic and funny. He always added the phrase "a Rooney" to the end of sentences, and I feel like that entered the British lexicon, which just shows how iconic he was. I feel like if you go up to anybody in Britain and say, you know, "Fab a Rooney," people will know where that's come from. There was also Jake, who was actually voiced by Justin Fletcher, who was another British TV star, obviously playing Mr. Tumble, which was a very popular character also in the early noughties. I believe he's still kicking about. I don't know what he's up to these days, but I think he's actually still in entertainment, so, you know, good for him. Jake was the youngest tweenie, and the main thing I remember about him was that he cried all the time. He was really annoying, and he always mispronounced words, and all the other characters were by that, as well as me. But he gets some cool points because he had a yellow mohawk, and that's quite ballsy for a child, so. There was also Max and Judy, who ran the nursery, and the dogs as well, as previously mentioned, and for some reason they have the ability to speak, which again is very deeply unsettling to me. Yeah, but it was a really iconic programme, spawning a spin-off show called Be Safe with the Tweenies, which taught kids about safety, like not touching matches, you know, because for obvious reasons you will burn your house down, and also crossing the road safely. It's safe to say that this show was everywhere in the early noughties, and I was quite surprised when I discovered that it only ran for 3 seasons. The fact that it generated an empire of merchandise, Christmas specials, and even a Top of the Pops parody, the less said about that the better, is crazy that it didn't actually run for as long as I thought. But I guess it just managed to, you know, stay in people's hearts, because it's still shown on TV to this day, and I think people really do remember it. It's one of them where it feels like it went on for much longer than it actually did. All of this you might already know. You might already know about the Tweenies, you might already know about the weird dogs, you might even know about the Be Safe with the Tweenies show, you might know the deep lore, but do you know that this iconic lineup of characters originally had a 5th member? That's right, there was a 5th tweenie. I was on the TV Tropes website the other day looking at tropes from the Tweenies, as you do, and I actually came across a part that intrigued me. So, to quote, original concept art shows there was going to be a 5th tweenie, a green-skinned boy named Sid, who was described as a sensitive chap. It wasn't confirmed why he didn't make the final cut, but it seems that his sensitive traits were passed over to Jake, and Judy took on his skin colour. Now, I had to look into this. I, like many other 20-somethings, are familiar with this iconic lineup, so finding out that there was originally a 5th member was kind of mind-blowing. He's like the Pete Best of the Tweenies, okay? Like, this is deep, deep lore, and it actually blew my mind. I found this interview in Coventry Live with Ian Lachlan, who co-created the show with his creative partner Will Brenton. Ian has an impressive 40+ years in the TV industry and has worked on the likes of the Fingermouse series, Playdays, Storytime and Fun Song Factory. Ian pitched the show with Will to the BBC as something that would replace the slot of Teletubbies on their network. As Teletubbies was coming to an end, they needed something fresh and new that followed the same bright, colourful characters that, they could merchandise, but also that people would look at and want more from. So in the interview with Coventry Live, Ian goes into detail about how each tweenie was a person in a suit with an animatronic head attached to the top. Horrifying. The characters were then dubbed over by actors such as Justin Fletcher, who I previously mentioned, in post-production, which, it is quite standard practice, for shows like this. If somebody's walking around in a big costume, it's very unlikely they're going to record their lines on set, and it's also probably unlikely that it's even going to have the same actors as the people walking around in the costumes. I mean, just look at The Mandalorian, Pedro does not do the suit anymore. So, you could say that Jake is the Mandalorian of the CBeebies world. So Ian told Coventry Live, quote, "There was originally 5 tweenies when we pitched it to the BBC. The middle one was called Sid. He was a little sensitive chap and the BBC cut him. And we ended up with 4 tweenies. Interestingly enough, according to the original drawings that I found online, illustrated by Will Brenton of the dolls, designed by Sally Pasig of Mimics Productions, Sid originally had pink skin, so even though he went through multiple iterations, he was eventually scrapped. And you have to wonder, why? Why was it that the BBC decided to ditch Sid? Maybe it was a costs issue. Maybe they didn't want to invest too much of their budget into a show that was basically filling in for the other iconic show of that time, the Teletubbies, How were they supposed to know that it would become the phenomena that it inevitably did? Or maybe they decided that having one sensitive and kind tweenie was enough. Maybe they thought they already had enough characters and character dynamics, and they didn't want to add any more into the mix. We may never know. It is interesting though. Sid ended up kind of dissolving, and his character traits and even the way he looks were given to other characters. If Jake and Sid were meant to be quite similar, it could have completely changed the dynamics of the core characters. Tweenies fans will know that the usual setup was Bella and Fizz being best friends and then Jake and Milo. Obviously there were episodes where different characters interacted in different ways, but maybe the BBC thought that 2 girls and 2 boys were enough to work with. Interestingly, on the Tweenies wiki, which I can't say I've ever visited before until this very day, Sid is listed as a character, with the page saying that he was cut by the BBC. The character description reads as follows: Sid is a green tweenie. His favourite colour is yellow. He had a father called Sparky. He was in the pilot version of the Tweenies. And interestingly, his father is listed, Sparky. Sparky doesn't have much of a page to himself. It seems as though he appeared as a separate character in the 51st episode of the show, Max Blows a Fuse. So, you know, that's very far into production. They already had 50 episodes under their belts. There's not really any evidence to suggest that Sparky is Sid's father. This could just be the wiki page editor making a connection between their similar appearances. Or perhaps Sparky shows up in the pilot as Sid's dad and they reused the costume in Max Blows a Fuse. Which is very, you know, common for the time and today, you know. If you spend ages making a costume and then a character gets cut, you're gonna try and find a way to bring the costume into production anyway, you know, so it's not a complete waste of money. Okay, so I'm editing the video and someone very helpfully on Reddit sent me this link to, I guess, what must have been a behind the scenes clip. Well, yeah, behind the scenes clip of the characters singing Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm not gonna actually play the audio, but that's Sid. Like, that is Sid. That's Sid right there. And I can't believe it. I mean, it's Sid without hair, and it's Bella without hair, and Milo shows up in a second, but that is Sid. And I'm just completely baffled. Like, it's the fact that Sid will have been there that far into production that they had the full puppet made, and then at the last minute he was scrapped. Like, honestly, it could have been any of them. It could have been any of them. No one was safe. Sid just took the fall. But I can't believe it. That's Sid. I don't know. I've been trying to find the original pilot episode, and I've fallen short. Maybe the pilot doesn't have Sid in, or Sparky as Sid's father, but now it feels like there's a full-on family tree. I mean, like I said, this could just be the wiki editor, you know, joking or making a connection for no reason. But if it could be uncovered, maybe we could get more information about Sid. Until then, the reasons for why he was axed from the show remain a mystery. I did actually try and reach out to Ian, one of the co-creators, about this. I did not hear back. So Ian or Will, if you do want to reach out to me and, you know, give a bit more information about Sid, I would be buzzing, to be honest. It'd be great. I'm a big fan. But, you know, I do feel quite bad for Sid. And I do wonder what it would have been like if there were 5 Tweenies instead of 4. Like a 5th Beatle, a 3rd Mario brother, or a 6th member of One Direction. It would have been the change to a lineup that everybody knows so well. I would have liked to see him. I would have liked to have seen at least the pilot episode, if it exists. But until somebody comes forward with any video evidence of Sid, I believe that he is lost forever. You know, it's a shame, but I don't think Sid is going to see the light of day. But if anybody has any information, please do send it my way. I feel like this is something that isn't talked about enough, and I'd like to know more, I really would. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on the missing 5th Tweenie. And thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. You can subscribe if you wish, or not. You might never want to watch any video ever again after this. But yeah, either way, I hope you have a lovely day.